today. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Samantha Lane, and I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing here at SE Shires. We've done a lot of Shires TV episodes since, I guess it was April. We've done a bunch of different virtual events and clinics, Q&As, factory tours, product information things. We've worked with, I think, over 40 of our artists through these. And now this is getting to be a really interesting time for everybody out there who is still working on playing and practicing both in a virtual space and maybe in person, depending on where you live and what's going on in your area. But I thought it'd be really fun if we could start to feature some of our artists actually presenting a short, relatively informal clinic, and also tie that with some of our incredible Q-Series instruments so people could actually hear our Q-Series instruments live and in the wild in the hands of some incredible technicians. So today we're going to be featuring Dr. John Marciondo, who's a Shires artist and has been for a very long time. We're very grateful to him for choosing to play our instruments. But Dr. Marciondo serves as Associate Professor of Trumpet at the University of New Mexico. He also plays principal trumpet in the New Mexico Philharmonic, trumpeter in Summit Brass, Enchantment Brass Quintet, the famed Tromba Mundi, and Marcion Duo, which is a trumpet duo with him and his wife, Bryn, who's also a fellow Shires artist. But Dr. Marciondo is an incredible teacher and educator, pedagogue, and just a kick-ass player. And so it's really fun to get to do this with him. Today, we're going to be featuring our Q-Series B-flat trumpet, the Q10S. And we'll talk a little bit more about some specky stuff and what Dr. Marciondo thinks about the horn. But I'll also be linking some URL things during this for people to check it out as well. But without further ado, John, thank you for being here and thanks for being a part of this show.
No problem. It's always a pleasure to be on Shires TV with you, Sam, and I've been looking forward to this mostly because this will be one of the actual first performances I've done for other people in quite some time.
Yeah.
With this whole pandemic thing going on, all of the services we've had for the orchestra, of course, have been canceled, and so I haven't rehearsed in person with my colleagues there or in Trauma Mundi. The Summit Rafael Mendez Institute was all online. And I've done a bunch of projects of recording for Fountain City Brass Band and Summit and other things, but nothing sort of really where I've played for people. Now, none of you are here in my study, but this is going to be the same. So I'm really I've been jazzed and really excited about doing this because I actually get to play for people for live for the first time in a while, and so I'm looking forward to it. So I thought I'd start today just by actually playing something on the horn so you get an idea what it sounds like. So again, as Sam said, this is the Q series, the Q10S, and I'm going to start by playing an etude by Ernst Poder, who was a turn of the century composer and wrote a couple of etude books and duet books for trumpet, as well as some trombone works and clarinet works, and so this is his fifth etude, which reminds me a lot of Strauss. I don't know why, but it does. So here's the Ernst Poder etude number 5.
Bravo.
Thanks. So, something that you have to get used to in the virtual world is you finish a performance and you don't really hear any applause.
It's such a
Even baseball
strange
players,
phenomenon.
even baseball players got applause for their plays in baseball games this year. So I need to get a applause machine, right? So,
We can pipe it in. That's fine. That's no problem.
so as you can hear, that etude is, again. There's a lot of sort of Straussian moments. It reminds me of some of the horn concerti that Strauss wrote, and all these Pauder etudes or Pauder, I don't know for sure. I tried to research and I couldn't find anything on who Ernst Pauder was. So
Maybe
other
somebody who's watching this later on
yeah,
can give us some
can
feedback.
send me an email and let me know. So, but um, this whole book is full of these etudes. This is the 24 etudes, and every etude is really fun like that. Just lots of great sort of orchestral slash soloistic styles, and it's really a lot of fun. I've been having a great time working through the book. So thanks to Jim Wilt for introducing it to me. So so
Jim does a nice job too.
yes, he does. So all right. So
So, I mean, yeah, John, like it would be really wonderful if you could chat a little bit about, I don't know, maybe some things that you're working on with your students, or as you're
yeah,
working on preparing etudes for all state students, like maybe
yeah.
some practicing tips and techniques for high
Well,
school, college age students.
it's interesting. So I've just been what I've been working on with my students recently, and every one of them will probably start kind of nodding their heads if they're watching, and kind of but we're all dealing with the same thing here in that we've all been robbed of sort of the benchmark process of what we do as musicians. Like we always hold ourselves accountable by our performances, and so or by the rehearsals with other people and things like that. And that's what I'm saying. It's been difficult for a lot of us because we haven't had that normal outlet for us to gauge how we're doing. And so what I've been doing with my students is having them record every week, and make a recording of whatever etude they're doing. And we started with just simple video recordings, very low level quality recording on their iPhone or on their computer with the crappy camera. And then we started changing to doing recording into digital workstations, and have worked up to this point to they have been able to we're all able to sort of put something together, like record it in sections and edit together, add a little reverb, things like to make it sound good. And then the last step will be to record both video and audio at the same time and pair it up.
Wow.
And so the hope is that we're all going to have a project to work on that they can sort of be proud of at the end of the semester. And in addition to getting better at trumpet playing, have some technical skills that they can maybe use in the future as teachers or performers. And so, but one of the things we've all been struggling with, and myself included, is that I'm playing. You probably could hear it in there too. I'm playing in a pretty dead room. You know.
It sounded great on our end, but I'll take your
So,
word for it.
but so that the room itself is kind of dead, and my students all the same thing. They're either playing in the crappy rooms in the basement of the school that they signed out for an hour and then have to leave it empty for 3 hours. So the next kid can go in there, or they're in their bedrooms at home, or not great sounding rooms somewhere at home, and so we've been dealing with how to practice in a dead room and how to prepare to perform in a dead room. And the recording has helped some with that, but something I've been working on them all a lot with lately is how to combat playing in a room less lively than we're used to. And the
Sure.
problem with a dead room like this is that it doesn't give us the feedback we're used to hearing in a hall or a rehearsal hall, or even a classroom that might have a little reverb, and we're on the wrong side of the instrument as trumpet players. So everything we play sounds a little bit different out there than it does to us. And that's why live rooms are so easy to play in, because the live room gives us feedback. Okay, so we get feedback back at us saying, okay, here's how you sound, and we can go, and then we actually play trumpet easier because we can hear ourselves. But then when we get into a dead room and we can't hear ourselves because there's no feedback from the room, carpeting, a rug on top of the carpet, there's a bunch of pillows in the corner, and things like that, and so we automatically begin to work harder to try to make ourselves sound in a dead room like we do in a live room, and it'll never happen because we're never going to have the feedback. And so something I've been working on with my students to have them combat that is to have them, I call it reflective practicing, and it's to play into their stand, and this is not something we do exclusively. It's to check. But so play into your stand and have the sound come back at you, so you get a better idea of what you actually sound like. And so, and we've had remarkable results in just the last couple weeks. My students have, just because now all of a sudden, not only are they hearing what they truly sound like in a dead room, but they're also not focusing so much on the fact it feels terrible in a dead room, right?
Right.
And so this is something that every teacher tries to teach their students at some point, that okay, we got to rely on how it sounds and not on how it feels, because feel is not what is measured by the audience. They don't care if it felt good or bad. They care how it sounds. And it's the hardest thing we have to do as musicians, is switch from gauging and practicing by feel, because for many years that's what we were trying to do, was to learn the kinesthetic memory of what it felt like to do it right. But at some point we all need to make the change to gauging how it's going by the fact that it sounds good. And so this recording that I have everybody doing, it's been a big help, because they're actually listening to themselves for the first time in maybe ever. and I found that the combination of the recording and actually playing in a way where they can hear themselves while they're just checking. And I'll do it all the time. Now I'm kind of used to this room now, so I can gauge a little better what I'm doing. But sometimes, especially on newer things, I'll be like, I don't know if that's loud enough. And so I'll just check and reflect off my iPad right here on my stand. And I'll reflect off the glass of my iPad. And it'll be like, oh yeah, that's plenty loud. That's plenty loud. And I do that all the time in my studio at school too, because that's also not a very live room. And when I would practice stuff for the Philharmonic, I would find myself working harder than I had to, because I was trying to make it sound in a dead room like it would in a live room. And it's never going to sound that way. And so for those of you who are practicing in your bedrooms and your dead offices, at home and things like that, where there's carpet and drapes and everything, try this. Try just reflecting. Put your bell about, I don't know, 6 inches away from the stand, and just have the sound come back at you. You'll be astounded as to what you hear. First off, you'll hear it and go, okay, that actually sounds pretty good, because you're getting direct feedback. Now, we can't practice this way exclusively, obviously, because we have to eventually get out of the stand. We can't play in the stand in a concert, because then no one will hear you. And so when I have my students kind of alternating how they do that, do some things in, and then the next day do something different in the stand, just to check, or just practice out of the stand, but check every few minutes to see what you're doing. And it gets them kind of recalibrated to listening rather than playing by feel.
Mm.
That's kind of the big thing that we've been dealing with in this pandemic is finding some ways to still gauge whether we're improving. And I think this has been a tremendous way for us to actually hear ourselves. And so that's what we've been working on this semester in lessons at UNM, and is trying to find our own sounds and find our own color of what we want it to be, So, and I think it's been pretty cool to watch my students grow that way. They've all been like changing in a positive way. I think we're all going to come out of this pandemic different. I refuse to think that we all are going to come out in worse. I think
Sure.
we can all come out better in some way, whether it be better as a player or a musician, or better as a person even, and so that's kind of what we've been doing, since we haven't had the benchmark of performing with the bands or recitals or things like that. So,
Yeah, it's interesting. So you were talking a little bit too, and this is something that I always want to hear you talk about,
hmm
in terms of sound and sound production and listening and all that kind of stuff.
hmm
Can you talk about maybe some things that you do to work on
sure.
color and tone? Because when I hear you play, man, it's like jaw dropping. It could be a B flat scale. I'm still like, damn, that's like one of the best sounding trumpets like I've ever, like,
Yeah,
it's so fantastic. So like, if you could talk a little bit about that.
sure. Yeah. The other thing that that me and all my students work on is just is trying to find the ease of play that is inherent to trumpet playing, that is frankly is not taught as much as it should be in terms of the ease of what we do. You know, my my good colleague Joe Bergstaller, you know, says, I've heard him say in classes that, to play trumpet beautifully and well is actually physically simple. To play trumpet poorly, with a bad, tight, tense sound, whatever, is actually physically harder. It's
Hmm.
actually harder work. And so so what we work on in the UNM studio, and what I work on in my own playing every day, when I wake up to practice at 5:30 in the morning, actually I downbeat at 5:30 in the morning. I'm usually up earlier than that. And it's all about trying to find the proper balance of three things. So pucker of the embouchure, oral shape inside the mouth, and the flow rate of air. And I think that the pucker or the of the embouchure, common sense, most people would know what that means. Oral shape, I think there's some wide disparages as to what should happen in terms of oral shape. And then same thing with the flow rate of air. There's some very different opinions. And so my opinion is that it actually, the amount of air we need to play trumpet is much smaller than what most people are teaching or have learned, including myself. I mean, I used to think, just as much air as we can get, right? Blow through the horn, all that stuff. Not true. We only need to blow as hard to make our lips vibrate. That's it. We don't need to blow harder than what it takes to make our lips vibrate, and that, frankly, is a much lower flow rate than most of us have been taught or are used to. And so I liken it to, it's very similar to singing. Okay, if you think of how we sing, we sing in a way, when you sing, do you feel the air leave your body? Not really. I'm not consciously thinking about creating a force of air to go out, right? I'm creating vibrance, okay? And so for me, same thing, I try to apply that same sort of concept to my playing. Now, and I'll have my students, will do this all the time, will sing in falsetto. So frankly, the note I use is a G. And so you can hear I'm singing in a falsetto note that's really vibrating. You can hear, if you were in this room with me, you'd hear the whole room kind of vibrating. But you also see there's very little effort that I'm putting out to do that, right? You don't see me moving a lot of air and tensing up to do it. You see me just kind of relaxing, okay? And so what I'm doing there is I'm getting the oral shape inside my mouth to be a little more forward, to create the vibrations up here in the sinuses and the nose and forward, okay? A lot of the trumpet pedagogy, again, and this is what I was taught and what I taught for many years before I was introduced to this, is it's all about being open back here. Oh, if we were to sing, oh, you can hear the difference when I change it from being forward to back here, okay? And that's not wrong. You can play trumpet beautifully that way. I just think it's harder work. And I'm all for easier. Okay? I'm a lazy person at heart, I think, and I just want it to be easy. And so this is easier for me to be thinking that a more forward sort of buzzy position up here rather than everything back here. Plus, when I go to sing back here, I have to really kind of open my throat, which you can't do. It's not possible. What's happening is you're jamming the back of your tongue up against your windpipe. And to me, that creates tension. And we all know tension is a bad thing when it comes to brass playing. And so when we get that vibrant place more forward up here, then automatic things happen, like flow rate tends to automatically adjust. Pucker tends to automatically kind of go more towards being firmer in the corners and less firm in the middle, which is what we want. and so that's just so and so we spend a lot of our time here working on trying to find that color. And so what that does is that creates a much more brilliant and vibrant color. Some might even say bright. I know
Heaven forbid. Oh
I
my
just said
goodness.
a bad word. You know, heresy in the trumpet world. Bright. Sorry, bright is
No,
what we. That's what we do. This instrument, not this one in particular, but trumpet has been scaring the crap out of people for centuries. Okay, you know, I mean, you know, ancient armies would have trumpet players march at the front of their army to scare their enemy. You know, the Egyptians did it, the Celtics did it, the Romans did it. I mean, even the Germans did it in World War II. You know, electronically. You know, or but
yeah.
you know, so but so that's what trumpet does. That's the color it provides a lot of the time is bright, and so we should let it be bright. We should let it be brilliant. If bright is a word that you don't like to use, then say brilliant instead. And so when we lower the amount of effort that it takes to play by not having to blow so hard or feeling you have to blow so hard and just let the lips vibrate, then resonance can truly happen. Okay, and then you know that whole etude. I don't know what it looked like because I wasn't looking at myself, but if it did it look like I was ever working really hard to play that etude? Like
No, I mean,
was there an effort level in my face that looked like I was working hard? You know,
no,
did,
and I
did it
think
ever
it
look?
does come off
Yeah,
if it happens too.
right.
And it,
You know, so and you know, and so that's trumpet playing is naturally going to be that way. What the trumpet wants to do is to go to bright and brilliant. So if we just let it by creating vibrance, then and so that's what the efficiency that I'm working on is trying to get the balance between those things. And when I have the balance right between the pucker and the oral shape, then the flow rate I'm playing with, I don't ever feel like I'm blowing harder than if I were to blow a candle, but at close range. You know, just that's it.
hmm,
You know, and I don't even want to. I don't even like to use the term blow because that's not what we do. We release. You know, and so and so and so part of my teaching is to try to define all these terms we hear, blow through that, support, all that stuff that you hear from teachers and stuff. And again, it's not wrong. I don't want to say any of that stuff is wrong. I just think a lot of it is never defined. What does it mean to blow through that? It means musically, let's continue to support the sound. And if we start thinking about all these technical things in a more musical way, then we can really be truly efficient
hmm.
and get away from the whole judging how it feels thing, you know. And I was the king of that for a long time. I remember Sam Palafian chewing me out over that, you know. Same with Mike Sachs. I took a lesson with Mike, and he chewed me out over the fact that I was still gauging whether I played well because it felt bad. I remember I played for him and I apologized at the end of the lesson. I said, "I'm sorry, Mike. I'm sorry I played terribly." He was like, "What are you talking about? You sound fine." I said, "Really?" and he said, and I remember he went, "Oh, you're a field player, aren't you? Isn't
I
ever
didn't get that.
be
Could you
quiet?
try again?
Be quiet, Siri."
I love technology. It's so
I know,
fun, isn't it?
I know. And I looked at Mike and said, "Isn't everybody?" He goes, "No."
That's
Ah,
so wild.
and and I remember, so right after this, I started talking to as many people about this. Just okay, when you gauge what you're doing, are you gauging by feel or by sound? How it sounds? And everybody was saying, "Oh yeah, by how it sounds." You know, I remember talking to Chuck Bergens, principal of the Phoenix Symphony, about this shortly after that lesson with Mike, and I was just like, "Is this a thing?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, it's the thing." God, man. And so it was at that moment during my doctorate that I realized I had to change something.
Hmm.
And then I was introduced to these concepts, and these are concepts that Jim Pandolfi talks a lot about too. And so I'm kind of borrowing from Jim and Pete Bond, who I've gotten this information from, and Pete calls it the bel canto style of trumpet playing, but bell spelled with two L's, like a trumpet bell, rather
Right.
than be one L. But so, and so, I'm a convert. I'm a convert into this more efficient, easier way of playing because trumpet naturally wants to do these things, and so we just let it. And so, So for me, the biggest thing I work on with my students is the oral shape and the change in flow rate that comes
Hmm.
with it. Okay, it's kind of almost automatic. Your body will automatically adjust to make things easier. And so if your oral shape is properly set, then the amount of air you blow will kind of naturally back off because your body doesn't want to feel effort, so and so there's many other obvious subtle layers to how I teach this that we're not going to get to today, but that's the basic gist of it. And so for me, the sound concept and how I get it physically comes from that work. How I got my sound concept, you know,
Like orally.
or orally, was
Yeah.
through tons of listening and having heroes. You know, my heroes growing up were Ronnie Rom was one of my first heroes in high school. I would listen to Canadian brass records and play along and try to sound like Ronnie. And now I get to work with him. Like, how awesome is that? And then
Amazing.
Bud Herseth, and then I got to college and someone introduced me to Phil Smith, and I remember the little visceral response I had to hearing his sound was like, that's it. That's what I want to sound like. And then shortly after that, someone played Tim Morrison for me as well. I was like, that too. Those are the two things that I want to sound like, those two players. And that was what drove me all through college and all through my early professional life, is just trying to make that sound happen. And that still, in a way, is there. Now, I have many more influences now. Dave Hickman is a huge influence
Yeah.
on my playing because of his use of color, how he can play really brilliant and really, really warm within the span of seconds, and just the palette of things he has to work with. So, um, but so students, what you need to do is go out and listen, find your heroes, and try to sound like them. I mean, if you go play an etude somewhere and someone says to you, "Gee, you sound like Phil Smith," is that a bad thing? No, it's a
Don't
pretty
think
good
so.
thing. That's a pretty good thing.
I
So,
don't think so. This is great. I mean, this is kind of like a TED talk with John Marciando on sound production. It's great. I
thank you
wasn't,
for coming to my TED Talk.
I know, I wasn't planning on taking questions, but we have a very interested young trumpet player by the name of
Okay.
Christopher Lane
Oh
who
yeah,
wrote in a question.
I've heard of that kid.
That hack, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I've heard of that kid.
But he says, when you're having an off day, how do you recenter yourself to get back to that effortless sound? So if you are going back to that like feel thing.
Right, right. Even then, it's what I try to do is when on those days when I feel stiff or puffy or just things aren't responding well, I'll back off. Everything gets taken back a notch. Like, instead of trying to play as what I perceive as big or loud as I think it should be, I'll just back off in terms of the effort, and um, that and I'll use the reflective practicing to help find that, but Al Hood, another colleague of mine in the Summit Brass, was just at UNM doing a video masterclass, and he talked about this very thing with my kids, and it was awesome because one of my kids played for him and was saying, "Oh, it's a bad chop day," and I was like, "Okay, well, why don't you try it again? But this time, instead of trying to play so big and loud, just get the same color and just play a little volume-wise softer, but with the same color." And so the kid played, and it was the same. It sounded the same in terms of volume, but much less effort. And he
Hmm.
was, freshman, started nailing things. It was like,
There you go.
and I realized, just like, yep, that's kind of what I do too. And so on those bad days, look, it might be that you just got to take a break from playing something really big and loud and just play something easy and soft. Um, what I do a lot is I'll often sit down and just pull out Bordonis or Conconis, if you would rather, or Rochu if you read bass clef, or flow studies if you're a Chickowitz person, and just play something really simple, and get yourself refocused on trying to hear your concepts of what you want to sound like, and making that happen, and not worrying about how to do it.
Right.
Ultimately, we got to stop thinking about how to do things and think about what we want to do and do it. And that's a long process. But any time that you are not focused on what you want your art to be, from style or color or volume or note length or articulation levels or vibrato or whatever, anytime you're not focused on trying to make those things happen, your brain automatically goes to the other analytical side. And even though you may not be in the forefront of your mind thinking analytical, you are.
Right.
And so on those days when things aren't feeling so good, I'll take a break from maybe the hard music I have to work on, or I'll practice the hard music I have to work on in a way that isn't hard. So like down an octave, or slower, or instead of like if it's a long fast line with a lot of notes, instead of doing the whole line, break it down into sections and just do 4 notes at a time with the
Yeah.
rest, whatever, and just make things easier so that you can stay focused on trying to sound good. So I don't know. That's a long-winded answer for the
No,
question.
it's a,
I hope it helped, Chris. So
you can't just practice semper paratus, Chris.
yeah,
You
right.
you got to get out of the band literature. No, just kidding. Sorry, dorky wife joke.
That's all right.
So I think maybe, John, if you don't mind, like I'd love to talk a little bit about the horn that you're playing on too. And like we can talk a little bit about specs and stuff, and I can link some stuff, of course, too. But man, can you just give us like some of your impressions about the horn and your experience with it?
So this is the Q10S. So that
Yeah.
basically the standard lead pipe. There's also the RS, which is a reverse lead pipe, and I have one of those too, but I gave it to a student who wanted to try it out. So Monique has that trumpet right now. Um, um, and so, but my impressions of this horn is, first thing is that, okay, this plays so much like a Shires trumpet, like a custom Shires trumpet, that it's a professional horn. I have two students who currently own Q series horns. Don't mind my daughter. Two who already own horns, and a third who's thinking of buying one, and several others who've asked about them. This is, I'd use this horn in the orchestra. I'd use this horn in any performances I had to do. As you can hear, hopefully in my performance, it creates all the colors that I wanted, from brilliant to warmer to whatever, and articulation was easy and clean, and the ease of play of a Shires horn is there, which is what attracted me to Shires first long ago, is just how easy they were to play, and then the sound, and the depth of it, how much of all the overtones that are ringing in a Shires horn, and I don't know what voodoo you guys do with the bells, or something out there, but it's like, and so this has all those qualities, and like I said, I would have no reservations. I clearly don't. I've already got students who own them, but no reservations about recommending this horn as a professional horn, because it is one, and so I've been playing on this horn for about a week and a half now, and I was struck right away with just how similar it is to my Shires custom horn. There are differences just because my horn is a heavyweight bell and this is not. I just like
Well, what did your student tell you too? What was the main difference your student noticed between your horn and this one?
well, is that my horn looks like crap. My horn is old and beat up, and this was all shiny and new. But I literally played this in lesson for the last week and a half. Not one student noticed a difference as I was playing a different horn, and then finally one kid was like, "Are you playing a different horn? Because that's all shiny." I said, "Yeah, no, this is different horn." So my Shires
Oh,
plant has history.
oh,
Right?
it's well loved.
It was one of the original floor models.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
so
real
it's
early on.
I mean, I still love it. I think it plays great. So um, but yeah, so that was the main difference, is that it looked all new, but nobody, and even in the last couple of days, I was kind of revealing it to kids, and I said, "So did you notice anything different about my playing?" Or, "No, why?" "Because I'm playing a different horn." They're like, "Wouldn't have known."
That's so
This
funny.
professional sounds, provided you give it professional info. But it's these are great horns, these Q horns, and something I want to do is eventually have our department at UNM buy a couple C trumpets for the department.
C's are great too, yeah. And I thought it'd be fun for us to just focus on, the B flat trumpet. I think you've gotten to try some of the C trumpets, and
Did, yep, I did.
yeah, and I
You know, I had kids
great.
try them too, and they were all like, "Yeah, I'd play this."
Yeah,
I'd play this if this were the school owned some of these, I'd play these.
happily, yeah.
Yeah. So,
But the
uh,
other fun thing is too, and I had just mentioned this to you right before we got started, but the whole point of the Q series is to kind of extend the offerings of what we do in our design and craftsmanship and all of that to
mhm,
a broader audience at a really great and affordable price point.
yeah,
And the Q series instruments do that, but it's also supposed to be a pretty comprehensive line. So like we have two B flat trumpets,
hmm,
the Q10S and the Q10RS, and the RS is the one with the reverse pipe, but it's the same, specifications as the one you're playing on. They're
yeah,
both
yeah,
killer horns.
yeah,
Two QC trumpets, one with a reverse, one with a standard pipe. And we're
mhm.
adding some fun things in 2021. We're adding a Q series Piccolo trumpet. It's so fantastic. I just sent it off to my colleague for him to test it too, but we're so excited.
Mhm,
Q series E flat D,
yep,
which will be great. And then also we're working on a custom series and a Q series flugelhorn, which will
nice,
also be out in 2021.
nice.
So like the fun thing is
Yeah,
like, I mean, for a doubler, right? Like all of a sudden, if you're not making your living playing flugelhorn, or you don't need a E flat D for, orchestral work and a ton of solo stuff,
right.
you can afford to purchase something that is a professional level instrument and great and easy to play and sounds beautiful, but
Yeah,
at a more affordable price point.
right. Yeah, yeah. No, it's. I mean, this is a. These are. eh, especially in tough times like this.
Yeah.
Having a horn that plays at the same level as many or better than many professional model horns is at an affordable price is essential. And so this is a great thing Shires is doing with these horns, and I'm certainly hooked on this. So part of me is going to be like, do I want to go back to my old horn or not? Because
Because
this one
this
looks
one's shiny.
shiny and so actually I have to give this to my other student to try.
That's funny.
But
One
yeah,
one thing that I would love to say too is that, Q series are also fantastic because we're able to really like focus on the production of these in our, factories worldwide and build, to the demand of the instruments. And so what could take, right now I think on our custom series 4 to 6 months, maybe a little bit longer, we're
mhm,
able to have most of our Q series instruments relatively able to ship out within a few weeks. And so
right,
all of a sudden, it also brings a much greater, breadth of instruments out to the public. So we have dealers all over the world, and especially in the U.S., who carry these.
yeah,
So I was going to link in the comments right now our like dealer locator. So if anybody's interested in checking out the Q series line, you can pop your zip code in, and it'll tell you who are some of the authorized dealers around you.
hmm, yeah, highly recommended.
Yeah, and like John, you've had students who have been able to test them out within your studio and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and so you guys are doing that, I'm sure, in a safe COVID environment with
Well,
protocols and stuff. But
yeah. So
yeah,
right now, like these, so the RS and S that I currently have, I'm only letting one person try, and then when she's done with them, I will collect either both or one of them if she buys one, and let
quarantine.
it let it sit for a while, let it quarantine, and then clean it, and then so we'll of course be safe about it. Prior to this though, UNM was one of the first recipients of the Studio Sampler program,
Yeah,
program that Shires has, and so they sent us two B flats, two Cs, one of each model. And I had those horns for quite some time for all the students to try, and ended up selling a couple of them. But the point was that all the kids could try them, and most of them did. Most of the kids in my studio did, and everyone was really impressed.
yeah,
And so this studio sampler program, I think, is there a way to,
yeah. I
volunteer
should
for that on the website or something?
There
And
is. I just added a link, and I'll just say it's a
right,
program that we started in the last year to partner with educational institutions,
mm-hmm,
private teachers, basically to give people the opportunity to try out our Q series instruments.
mm-hmm,
And so I just linked it. It's seshires.com/studio sampler, and
yep,
it's just like a little contact form. So if you're interested, if you're a student and you're interested in having your school participate, You can pass that link on to your teacher, or you can fill it out, and we can reach out to you and get your teacher's contact
Right.
information.
Right.
But it's a really fun way where we're able to send in instruments so that you and your colleagues and your students or your teachers,
Mhm.
whoever, can test out some of our Q series
Yeah.
instruments.
Yeah. And we've been very fortunate here at UNM that we're close to one of the most active Shires dealers in Josh Whitehouse and Milano Music down in Phoenix, and they've come up here a few times to have a Shires Day where we have a bunch of Shires horns in the building that both trombones and trumpets that everybody can try, and now euphoniums, like we
And
have
now
to have
euphoniums.
now we have to have a Shires Day to have euphoniums
I
tried.
know.
But it's always been a really fun day for me to, because every time, and Sam will vouch, every time I see her at ITG or NTC or any event, I'm in the Shires booth trying horns because
Yeah.
I'm a trumpet nerd, and it's been that way for since I was an artist, but it's always a good way to try new things, and I certainly appreciate that as a teacher, making it easier for my students to be able to do that, I've had two students for sure, and possibly a third now soon, be able to replace really awful horns that they needed to replace with really great horns, and both of them will tell you, yeah, no, this horn is great, and the difference was immediate in terms of how they could play, much greater ease of play. So I thank you, Shires, for all that help. That
Yeah.
makes it's a big help to us music educators to be able to do that. So
Yeah, it's been a really fun program. And we're actually just starting another one kind of in your neck of the woods, but across state lines over in Phoenix area
right.
with Emery Harbison is going to be doing a studio sampler.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we've had a really great time with the studio sampler programs. It's been really fun for us to get the instruments out to a broader, group of players and
Mhm.
teachers and also students. And
Right.
especially now with things being canceled so much,
Yeah.
we're able to, in a safe way, right, still be able to present instruments to people who are interested in trying them.
Right.
So we're trying to always stay as far ahead of the curve as we can
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
that stuff. So,
Yeah.
um, but John, man, this was such a treat. Oh my
Oh, no.
goodness.
Thank you. This was, like I said, this was fun. This was I haven't had that much fun playing trumpet in a while. It's just like,
Oh my
God,
gosh, yeah.
people actually listening. This is great.
I know,
I
it's so
hope. I don't
good.
know. I'm not looking at Facebook. I can't see
No,
who might be listening, but
no, it's great.
So,
Was there anything else that you wanted to cover or chat about or project
um,
wise or
I mean, Trombamundi has a CD coming out soon.
that'll
Um,
be fun.
um, we're waiting for artwork to be done, and this new CD that we actually recorded a couple years ago, in Nashville, and it's really good. Like all six of us are just like, okay, this one's sparkling, man. It's really good, and so watch for news on that in the coming weeks here or months. I don't know what the time frame is for actual release of things, but it'll probably be released digitally first. And we're looking forward to it. It's a really all six of us are really proud of the record, and I have another project, and I'm working on. I don't know how sane this is, but I'm going to attempt to record all 50 states, all state etudes. So stay tuned to my YouTube page. Um,
Definitely check out his
so,
YouTube page if you want to have some
um,
constant trumpet inspiration.
so New Mexico is done. I'll post that one on my, it's actually on the Brass Area YouTube page, UNM Brass Area. Um, I'm currently working on a few states, and we'll get some recordings done and then start putting them up. Uh,
Yeah.
and so I don't know if I'll make it to all 50, but we're going to try. So, so, and that'll
It's
be
an
fun.
all-state road trip around the country.
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Yeah.
It's becoming more and more of a thing that people record all state etudes for their state where they live, and I'm just, um, I think there's a much greater span of color and style that we can try to approach in etudes, and I just want people to hear what I think it should be because I think it's good. So,
Yeah.
And if a high school student does something more musical than what they normally would do and is inspired, then beautiful. That's
Good
why we
point.
do. So, yeah.
Well, we'll keep an eye out for that stuff too, and
Yep.
share them as you're posting, so people in
Good.
social media land, as we called it earlier, will be able
Yep.
to hear it. So,
Sounds good.
well, thank you for everybody who's tuning in. These are going to be a recurring series every Thursday afternoon, pretty much through the end of the year. I think we're going to take the Thanksgiving week off or whatever. But we're going to be covering trumpet, trombone, euphonium. We have some great artists. I don't want to tease too much. Every week we'll kind of do a quick little post, just to let you know who's going to be giving a clinic that week.
Mhm.
But yeah, every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, these videos will also stay on Facebook and will live on our YouTube channel as well. So should be a lot of fun.
Beautiful.
Thank you, John.
Hey, thank you. I'm honored to be the first of the Shires Q series clinics, and
Love it.
I appreciate, along with the rest of us artists and my students who play Shires and other colleagues, that thank you for everything that Shires does for us in terms of these instruments. It makes a difficult job easier, and that's always very appreciated.
Man, that's so nice of you to say.
Thanks. So,
Well, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next week. And everybody have a great rest of your week. All
take
right.
care, everyone.
See you later. Bye.